Wario World finally makes its return on the Nintendo Switch 2. But was it really that good? They didn't release the game with a physical copy, but instead put the game on the Nintendo Online expansion pack. And so far, this has arguably been one of my favorite games on the entire service. Some would think that's a crazy thing to say, considering there's so many great games like Wind Waker, but Wario World is so different and so unique. So we're going to go over what makes this game so unique and so different, alongside the good and bad parts of it as well. Wario World originally came out in 2003 on the Nintendo GameCube. It would then re-release in late 2025 on the Nintendo Plus expansion pack. And luckily, it runs really well on the Switch too. I haven't noticed any input lag, crashes, or issues that have stopped me from playing the game. The story follows Wario and his greed as it finally catches up to him. His black jewel will transform all of his gold into monsters and turn his castle into 4 different worlds, which you progress throughout the game. And like any other Nintendo game, there's tons of collectibles. You capture crystals to move to the next part of the world, and the gameplay is pretty straightforward and arguably generic. You have some pretty basic punching, a dash, a butt slam, rolls, and then specialty moves like the pile driver, where you grab an enemy, start to spin in the air, and then smash onto the ground. Other ones include grabbing the enemy and spinning them around as fast as you can, and also charging up and throwing them across the map. But the bosses, platforming sections, and the art style is where the game truly shines. The first world brings you to Excitement Central, which is like a whimsical forest. It starts out pretty easy and it just shows you the game mechanics that you'll use throughout the game, and after each level, you'll have a boss. And then after completing both levels, you move on to the main boss. Spooktastic World is the second world, and it's actually a horror-themed one. The first stage takes place in a haunted mansion in a courtyard, with the second one taking place in a circus, so it definitely worked with the horror theme. And these worlds are super cool. It instantly makes me think of the early 2000s with the different color shades and color patterns, and you can tell that the art and design team had a ton of fun with this game. This world's boss was the Dueling Dragons, and they were by far the most difficult boss up to this point. You have 2 different enemies throwing stuff at you at all times, and it gets pretty hard to avoid all of them. But to kill the bosses, they all follow the same general pattern. Do something to knock them out, pick them up, pile drive them into the ground 5 times, and then you're good to go. Thrillsville is the third world, and its first level is a snowy mountain that incorporates some different gameplay elements, like sliding around because of the ice. Once you beat that, you head over to Beanstalk, and it has some of the best verticality in the game, and is personally one of my favorites. This world had some crazy bosses, like the Winter Wincer, Spider Atticus, and the final being Red Brief Jays. Out of all the worlds in the game, I would say this one has my favorite art style, gameplay, and bosses. I mean, just look at the Winter Wincer and look at Red Brief Jay. Both of them are bizarre looking. The ice sections in the map were a little annoying, but not too bad. And the Beanstalk was fun because you got to go all the way up the Beanstalk, just like whatever that story is. And then lastly, you head over to Sparkle Land. This world has Mirror Mansion to start out, and it's probably my most hated level in the entire game. They turned the difficulty up, which is more than fine, but the enemy spam was just so apparent. And God forbid you fall off the map and you're in for a world of trouble. Because not only is it bad enough that you have to deal with the floating heads trying to steal your coins, but now the paths are even narrower and you're almost guaranteed to fall in the water, which results in more coins going. I did leave a couple of levels out of this video, just in case there's someone watching this video that doesn't want all of them to be spoiled. Because it's definitely worth going into this game a little bit blind, just so you don't have everything spoiled for you. But let's get into the good and bad parts of the game. So starting off with the bad, there's a handful of things that I wasn't a huge fan of, and undoubtedly the most annoying thing is when you fall off the map and end up in this dungeon, where you're getting chased around by the ghosts and having to break crates to get your way out. This is fine for the first world or two, but I swear, the last 2 were just brutal. After breaking your 15th box without finding the way out, and then having those ghost things just grab you and throw you around, it would be pretty rage-inducing, but I guess that's part of the game. I've wondered if it'd be less annoying for them to just take away 300 or 400 coins instead of throwing me in that dungeon. These platforming sections are pretty amazing, but I will say they vary. Some of them are hilariously easy to where you just jump over a couple boxes and you're there, and other ones I've had to redo 10 or 20 times and made me want to throw my Switch across the room. The next thing I don't like is that you can basically go through the entire game without killing many enemies. Of course the incentive is to get coins, but if you have a ton of hearts that doesn't really matter. And there were moments where I didn't feel like button mashing and just felt like doing the platforming sections or killing the bosses, so I would literally just run by all of the enemies. There are certain sections where they lock you into a fighting hub, which wasn't too bad, but that was about it. And this next one is good or bad depending on who you ask. And that would be the menu music. If you ask me, I think it's hilarious and it fits perfectly in the game, but if you ask my fiance, she hates it and tells me to turn the Switch off. It is easily the most hilarious and annoying menu music in any game I've ever played. It's so bad that even Wario himself apologizes if you leave the pause screen on for 50 minutes. The puzzles in this game are a ton of fun, but they can be a bit frustrating at times. There's not too much cheese in this game, as most of them are pretty fair, but they do get more difficult towards the end of the game. And there's honestly so many good things I could talk about that this video could be an hour long. The things I like best about this game are undoubtedly the artwork, bosses, and platforming sections. I have never played a game that has looked like this, and it's pretty obvious that the developers were smoking something when they were making this game. The puzzle and platforming sections are also some of my favorites, as all of them had the same general pattern, but they were different enough that they felt fresh and unique every time. Feels like such a classic GameCube and Nintendo experience that it feels nice going back to it. So it's a travesty that there still hasn't been a Wario World 2. But this is what Nintendo likes to do. They like to bring back old IPs and essentially test the market to see if there's enough interest to justify a sequel. And I would have to assume that that's exactly what they're doing here, by throwing Wario World onto the GameCube emulator just to see the fan reception and if it can warrant a sequel. So I'm just hoping that this is enough to convince them to go with a second game, because this one was phenomenal. Not only is the art amazing, but also the sound effects. You can always hear Wario just say some random things or make some weird random noises, and the music is more than fitting for each world. We're just gonna have to see what Nintendo does next, but I'm hoping this video can show them that there is a lot of interest out there. In my next video, I'm gonna be ranking all of the Nintendo GameCube games that are on the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, so stay tuned for that one.